"Daddy, Grandma's lying." The words erupted from Andrea, a small but fierce truth that pierced the heavy silence of the courtroom. All eyes turned toward her, a shockwave rippling through the spectators like a tremor across the earth. Judge Thomas Liam glanced up, his brow furrowed in disbelief, momentarily stunned by the child's unexpected outburst. From his seat, George, her father, turned sharply to her, his expression a muddled mix of surprise and mounting frustration. "Andrea, sweetheart," he began, his voice trembling as he grappled with the unraveling moment, but the rest of his words were lost in the whirlwind of emotions swirling around them. Mary, Andrea's grandmother, sat with her hands clasped tightly in her lap, heart racing. The worry etched on her face deepened as she whispered softly, "I'm not lying, love. We're just trying to keep you safe." The judge cleared his throat, trying to regain control over the proceedings. "This is a serious matter, Andrea. We need to stay calm," he said, his eyes scanning the courtroom, searching for an anchor in the storm. But the small girl's innocent plea ignited the tension. "But she said you're not safe with Daddy." Panic laced her voice, her words hanging in the air like a delicate glass ornament ready to shatter. Gasps erupted throughout the room, eyes darting between George and Mary. George's face turned a deep shade of crimson. Fury tempered by confusion twisted his features. "You don't know what you're talking about," he shouted, his voice echoing off the sterile walls. "Enough." Mary interjected, standing up, her heart pounding. "Andrea is scared. She's just a child who lost her mother. Can't you see that?" Her voice trembled with a mix of anger and concern, the maternal instinct surging to protect her beloved granddaughter. "Your Honor." George's voice was sharp. "This is a manipulation. My daughter doesn't understand what she's saying." Judge Liam raised a hand, calling for silence. "We must remember that this child is going through an unimaginable loss. Andrea, can you tell us what you're feeling?" The weight of the room pressed on Andrea's small shoulders. She shifted uneasily, her eyes darting from her father to her grandmother. "I just want Mommy. I don't want to live with him," she whispered, the words catching in her throat, spilling into the air as a piercing cry for love and security. Mary's heart ached at the sound, and she stepped closer to Andrea. "You're safe with me, sweetheart," she said, her voice soothing. "I promise I will take care of you." But George, fighting his rising panic, interjected, "You can't do this, Mary. You're just trying to take her from me because you think I'm a monster." "Maybe you are a monster." Mary shot back, anger flaring with the protective instinct of a grandmother who had already seen too much suffering. "Look at what you've put her through." The judge looked between them, realizing he was witnessing layers of emotional turmoil unraveling in real time. The courtroom felt increasingly small, a cage filled with unspoken truths. "Enough," he commanded, his voice strong and authoritative. "This is not helping Andrea." Andrea felt dizzy, as if the very foundation of her world was crumbling. "Can I just go home?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper, eyes wide with confusion. "Home?" George rubbed the back of his neck, frustration boiling. "You mean that house? Where everything fell apart?" "Stop!" Mary yelled, her passion igniting. "Home is where she feels safe, not where she fears her own father. You may not realize it, but your anger is pushing her away." With every exchange, Andrea sank deeper into despair. She missed her mother's comforting smile, the warmth of her arms, and the stories that had turned their evenings into magical adventures. She wished to escape the pain that had descended upon their lives like a shadow too vast to comprehend. "Your Honor," Mary pleaded, turning back to Judge Liam with tears glistening in her eyes. "This isn't just about legal custody. My granddaughter needs love and support right now. Please. She deserves a chance to heal." Judge Liam nodded, his expression softening. "Andrea, can you tell me what makes you feel safe? Is there a place or person you feel you can trust?" The small girl contemplated, her brow furrowing as memories flooded back, making pancakes on weekends, playing in the backyard with her mother, and feeling the warmth of a hug after a long day. "I feel safe when Grandma hugs me," she finally admitted, her voice trembling. Mary enveloped her in a protective embrace, and in that moment, Andrea felt the strength of her grandmother's love and warmth. It wrapped around her like a life raft thrown into unpredictable waters. Judge Liam took a deep breath, sensing the delicate balance of emotions hanging in the air. "I must consider Andrea's needs moving forward," he said thoughtfully. "It seems clear she is in need of comfort and stability during this unsettling time. Just give her back to me," George shouted, the desperation in his voice slicing through the moment like a knife. "I'm her father. She needs me." Andrea turned to her father, searching his eyes for the softness she once knew, a spark of love now obscured behind walls of pain and anger. "But you're not safe," she whispered, her heart shattering beneath her small chest. "You get mad." The courtroom fell silent once again as her words spoke truths that hung like a ghost over the proceedings. George's face fell, the truth dawning upon him that he could no longer hide from. In that moment, Judge Liam leaned forward, locking eyes with Andrea. "I'm going to make sure that whatever happens, you will be taken care of," he said firmly, his voice resonating with unwavering compassion. "This is just the beginning of what we need to decide as a family." As the gavel struck down, signaling the end of the session, a storm lingered in the room, a hint that nothing would ever be the same again. Andrea could feel the electric tension hanging, like a cloud waiting to unleash the rain. Little did she know that this was just the start of a journey, one filled with choices, battles, and the search for a sense of belonging amid the chaos. Would she find the strength to navigate her new reality? One thing was certain: the road ahead would be far from easy, and it would demand more courage and resilience than she ever thought she had. As the gavel struck down, signaling the end of the session, a storm lingered in the room, a hint that nothing would ever be the same again. Andrea felt the electric tension, a thick silence wrapping around her like a blanket woven from fear and uncertainty. She could sense a shift, a seismic rift opening not just between her father and grandmother, but within her own small heart, caught in the clash of loyalties. George stood, fists clenched at his sides, eyes darting around the courtroom as if searching for an ally in a battle he hadn't prepared for. Mary, still holding on to Andrea, remained resolute, her grip a lifeline amidst the emotional turmoil. "Let's go," she said gently, her voice low but firm, urging Andrea toward the exit. Andrea's small feet shuffled slowly, the weight of the day pressing down on her. She wanted to run, to escape the barrage of emotions swirling around her, but her legs felt like lead. Each step away from her father felt like a tearing away, a betrayal that clenched her throat. She glanced back, catching George's eye one last time. The look he gave her was like a plea, a father desperate to be recognized, but the distance that had formed was already a chasm too wide to cross. As they left the courtroom, Andrea could hear the murmurs of the spectators behind her, whispers of concern, judgment, and pity. She felt exposed, raw, as if her heart was laid bare for all to see. The bright lights of the courthouse hurt her eyes, a stark contrast to the dim emotional shadows they had just departed from. "Can we go home?" Andrea finally asked Mary, the word home now holding a dual meaning she wasn't prepared to confront. Each syllable dripped with longing and fear, her voice cracking as it peeked out from the fog of confusion. Mary knelt beside her, cupping Andrea's cheek with warm, gentle hands. "We will find a new home, sweetie. One where you feel safe and loved. That's the most important thing right now." However comforting Mary's words were, they only deepened Andrea's misgivings. Could a new home ever replace the warmth of the memories she shared with her mother? The laughter, the late-night stories, the comfort of a soft embrace deemed unconditional and whole? With a heavy heart, they made their way to the parking lot. The cool air brushed against Andrea's cheeks, a welcome contrast to the storm of emotions inside. Mary guided her toward the car, a small haven amidst the chaos. Just before they reached it, a figure caught Andrea's attention from the corner of her eye. It was George, standing by the courthouse steps, looking lost as he grappled with the chaos unfolding around him. But instead of comfort or fatherly assurance, what Andrea saw was a man transformed by fear and rage, a shadow of the father she once knew, swallowed by circumstances beyond his control. For a fleeting moment, her heart ached for him, but clarity quickly returned. She was the one who felt lost now. "Come on, honey," Mary said, sensing the turmoil in Andrea's silence. "Let's get home." They climbed into the car, the comforting scent of leather and soft fabric wrapping around Andrea like a protective cocoon. "Will I see Daddy again?" she whispered, staring out the window as the world outside rushed past, a blur of colors and shapes, each as fleeting as her freedom felt. Mary hesitated, the question laced with a complexity that weighed heavily on both their hearts. "I don't know, my love. But what matters right now is that you feel safe," she replied, her voice steady despite the uncertainty. The drive was silent, marked only by the soft hum of the car engine and the distant sounds of the bustling city. Andrea's thoughts spiraled, questions swirling like leaves caught in a tempest. If Grandma was right, was her father truly dangerous? Would she ever be able to feel safe again? When they finally arrived at Mary's home, a quaint little cottage with a garden overflowing with vivid blooms, Andrea felt a strange mix of comfort and caution. The home was a reminder of better days, filled with warmth and the sweet scent of freshly baked cookies. But now, every corner felt haunted, the laughter that once echoed through the walls replaced by an unsettling quiet. Mary stepped out of the car and opened the door to the house, gesturing for Andrea to follow. "Let's make some cookies, okay? Your favorite chocolate chip." A hint of a smile tugged at Andrea's lips. "Can we do extra chocolate?" Mary chuckled softly, the joy a sharp contrast to the heaviness of the day. "Of course. We can do as many as your heart desires." As they moved through the familiar kitchen, the warm light spilling across the counters felt like an embrace, slowly melting away the frigid reminders of the courtroom. Amidst the clinking of mixing bowls and the sweet aroma of melting chocolate, Andrea found solace in the moment. She watched her grandmother move about the kitchen, lost in the rhythm of baking, and for the first time that day, a flicker of hope sparked within her. "Can we talk about what happened today?" Andrea asked, licking her finger and stealing a bit of dough from the bowl. Mary paused, her gaze softening as she leaned against the counter, a sprinkle of flour dusting her cheek. "Of course, we can talk. Whenever you're ready." "I don't understand why Daddy is mad," Andrea murmured, a hint of frustration bubbling beneath the surface. "And I don't want to keep choosing between you two." "It's okay to feel that way, sweetheart," Mary said, kneeling down to meet Andrea at her level. "Your father and I are both trying to protect you in our own ways. But remember, it's not your fault. You don't have to choose sides." Andrea considered this, her heart heavy with the weight of her love for both of them. "I'm scared, Grandma," she finally admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "Scared is okay," Mary reassured her, brushing a loose strand of hair behind Andrea's ear. "But you're not alone in this. I promise to be right here with you every step of the way." As they formed cookies into little shapes and placed them on the baking tray, Andrea felt a sense of calm beginning to wash over her. A well-timed distraction amidst their uncharted realities, sweetened memories forged through laughter, flour dust, and hope. Little did she know, this journey would shape her in ways she had yet to understand, transforming her heart as she navigated the deepest valleys of love, loss, and the quest for safety. And, as the cookies baked in the oven, a new chapter was poised to unfold, with all its complexities still hidden behind the horizon. As the cookies baked in the oven, the sweet aroma began to fill the small cottage, wrapping around Andrea and Mary like a warm hug. A sense of normalcy settled in for the first time since the tumultuous courtroom hearing, offering a glimmer of hope amid the shadows of uncertainty. "Can we put sprinkles on some, too?" Andrea asked, a slow smile creeping across her face. Engaging in such a simple activity felt both reassuring and invigorating, a welcome distraction from the heavy thoughts weighing on her mind. "Absolutely." Mary beamed, her eyes sparkling with delight. "The more color, the merrier. Let's make the biggest sprinkle party this kitchen has ever seen." They rummaged through the kitchen drawers, finding a collection of sprinkles ranging from glittery pink to vibrant blue. Andrea poured the sprinkles with unrestrained joy onto several cookies, her laughter echoing off the walls like the joyous notes of a melody. As Mary placed the finished cookies onto a cooling rack, Andrea allowed herself to forget, if only for a moment, about the complexities of her life and the emotions swirling beneath the surface. It felt good to lose herself in the simplicity of the moment. Once the cookies cooled, they sat down at the table, an array of golden brown treats lined up before them like treasures waiting to be savored. The first bite was pure bliss, warm chocolate melting on her tongue. It reminded Andrea of weekends spent baking with her mother, stirring batter and sharing stories. With every cookie, the memory felt both incredibly sweet and unbearably painful. Her expression shifted when her thoughts sidled back to the previous day, the moment in court when she felt so torn. "Grandma," Andrea began quietly, the tone in her voice prompting Mary's attention. "What if it's not just me feeling this way? What if Daddy is really hurting too?" Mary paused, her smile fading as she sensed the weight of the question. "That's a possibility, Andrea. Sometimes, when people are upset or scared, they don't show their feelings in healthy ways. They might act out of anger or frustration." The realization settled across Andrea's heart like a cloud. "But I don't want him to be sad," she said, her voice trembling. "I want my family back." Mary reached across the table, squeezing Andrea's hand. "I understand, sweetie. It's natural to want to feel whole again. But it's important to remember that sometimes families change, and we have to learn to navigate these changes." "What if he gets better?" Andrea asked, her big brown eyes filled with the innocence of hope. "People can change, Andrea. Healing is a process, a journey that takes time, love, and support." Mary sighed, her heart heavy with the truth of her own words. "But right now, you need to focus on yourself, on feeling safe and loved. I'm here for you, and we'll figure this out together." A soft silence enveloped them, filled only by the sounds of the outside world, a gentle breeze rustling the trees and the distant laughter of children playing in the neighborhood. "Can we go see the park? The one with the swings?" Andrea's sudden burst of enthusiasm broke the stillness, a spark igniting within her, compelled by the thought of escape and adventure. "Please. It might help us feel happy." Mary smiled, relieved to see her granddaughter's spirit resurfacing, if only for a heartbeat. "That sounds like a wonderful idea. Let's get our shoes on." The two of them dashed to the door, excitement bubbling between them, a promise of shared laughter ahead. Mary locked the house behind them, and they set off hand in hand, the garden bursting into a riot of colors as spring painted the world anew. As they approached the park, Andrea felt the weight of the past few days begin to lift, the sun shining down upon them like a blessing. The park stood before them, alive with the chatter of children, the melodic squeak of swings, and the joyful barks of dogs running free. "Look!" Andrea squealed, her face lighting up as she spotted the swings, their chains glistening in the sunlight. She dashed toward them, the world around her fading into a blur of laughter and play. Mary followed closely, the warmth in her heart rekindling with every step. She knew the joy of this moment was precious, a brief respite from the tumult surrounding them. As Andrea climbed onto the swing, her laughter filled the air, carrying a weightless joy that shot straight to Mary's heart. "Higher, Grandma. Push me higher," Andrea exclaimed, her face aglow with happiness. Mary obliged, pushing the swing and relishing in Andrea's excited giggles. Each swing, each thrust into the air, sent waves of freedom rushing through Andrea, allowing her to momentarily forget her worries. The rhythmic motion felt like a dance, a fleeting escape from uncertainty. "Hold on tight." Mary laughed, pushing higher, their spirits buoyed by the simple pleasure of the moment. As the sun began to set, casting shades of orange and pink across the sky, Andrea hopped off the swing and stumbled forward, giggling breathlessly. She spun around, her hair whipping in the wind, the remnants of worry dissipating into the golden glow of the evening. "Tonight, we can make a picnic," she suggested, a burst of inspiration lighting her eyes. "We can lay on the grass and look at the stars." Mary's heart swelled at the thought. "That sounds perfect, sweetheart. Let's gather some snacks and head home to prepare." With renewed energy, they dashed home, collecting everything they needed for their impromptu picnic: sandwiches, juice boxes, and of course, a special container filled with their chocolate chip cookies. Once they settled on a blanket in the backyard, the stars began to twinkle overhead, each one a tiny glimmer of hope shining through the darkness. Andrea pointed skyward, her eyes wide with wonder. "Look at that one. It's so bright." Mary smiled, lying back on the blanket next to her, the evening air cool on her skin. "It's beautiful, just like you." "Do you think Mommy can see us?" Andrea asked, her voice a whisper, laced with longing. Mary took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the question. I believe that wherever she is, she's watching and loving you, always. You carry her light in your heart. Andrea smiled softly, as if the words had struck a chord deep within her. You're right, Grandma. I'll keep shining for her. As they gazed at the stars, the weight of the world began to lift. In that moment, under the constellation of twinkling lights, Andrea felt a flicker of resilience, the promise of new beginnings amidst the remnants of the past. While the road ahead remained uncertain, she knew she wouldn't have to navigate it alone. Together, they would face the unknown, nurturing hope and love along the way, forging a new path toward a brighter future. The stars above twinkled like diamonds scattered across a deep indigo canvas, and in that moment of shared stillness, Andrea felt a profound connection to her grandmother, to the universe, and to the laughter of her mother echoing softly in her memories. The warmth of the cookies in her hands mingled with the cool night air, grounding her in a cocoon of comfort even as uncertainties loomed ahead. Look! Andrea exclaimed, pointing to a particularly bright star that seemed to shimmer with an unusual intensity. Maybe that's the star Mommy is watching us from. She's smiling at us, don't you think? Mary turned to follow her granddaughter's gaze, her heart swelling with both pride and sorrow. She wanted to share in Andrea's belief, to envelop her in the warmth of innocence that came so naturally to children. Yes, I bet she is, she responded, her voice thick with emotion. She'd be so proud of you, Andrea. They took a moment to chew their food in contemplative silence, each engrossed in their own trains of thought, wrapped in the gentle sounds of the night, the rustling of leaves, the chirping of crickets, and the faint buzzing of distant insects. Grandma. Andrea's voice cut through the tranquility, a tentative tone that made Mary turn to her. Do you think we'll ever feel normal again? The question hung in the air, laden with the weight of experience that belied her young age. Mary took a deep breath, knowing the answer would shape Andrea's understanding of the world. You know, sweetheart, normal is a funny thing. It changes as we change. We can always find moments of happiness, even when everything around us feels a little off-kilter. It's okay to feel sad sometimes, too. That's how we know we're human. Andrea nodded slowly, mulling over her grandmother's words, her brow furrowing in concentration. So, it's okay to miss Mommy and still be happy with you. Exactly, Mary said, her voice gentle but firm. As we learn to navigate our feelings, we create a new kind of normal. Love doesn't disappear, it transforms, just like the seasons. With newfound understanding, Andrea took a bite of her cookie, savoring the familiar taste while considering all that had been said. Just then, a gentle breeze swept across the yard, rustling the surrounding trees and enveloping them in a comforting embrace. Let's make a wish, Andrea suggested unexpectedly, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. When I was little, Mommy would say that every time the wind blows, it carries our wishes to the stars. Mary chuckled, her heart lightening at the idea. A lovely thought. What will you wish for? Andrea closed her eyes, raising her arms dramatically in theatrical fashion, as if preparing to cast her wish into the night. I wish for more picnic nights with you and a rainbow-filled sky and, for Daddy to become happy again. Mary smiled, touched by the sincerity of her wish. That's a beautiful wish, Andrea. May the universe hear it and respond in its own special way. As they settled back on the blanket, the comforting weight of their shared connection enveloped them once more. Andrea's yawns began to punctuate the earthy melody of the night, and Mary laughed softly, realizing just how late it had gotten. It's getting late, little one. We should head inside soon. I'd hate for you to wake up cranky. Reluctantly, Andrea nodded and began to gather up their picnic spread. Even as she tied it up, an unexpectedly heavy thought crept back into her mind. Her father. She turned to Mary, her heart heavy again at the thought. What if we could see Daddy? Would he want to come to a picnic with us? Mary took a moment to consider her granddaughter's question. Andrea, sometimes people struggle to communicate and connect because of their pain. But you aren't alone in wishing for things to be different. We can encourage your father to join us when he's ready. Just remember, he might need time, too. Will he still love us? Andrea asked, hope and fear dancing in her expression, so beautifully innocent yet heart-wrenchingly perceptive. Love, my dear, is a stubborn thing. No matter how dark the times may seem, love tends to find a way to shine through. It may change form, like clouds shifting in the sky, but it always lingers, waiting until the moment it's safe to break free. As they finished tidying up, the comfort of night wrapped around them like a hug. The air was filled with the sounds of wildlife as they made their way back through the garden. Andrea stole one last look at the star-speckled sky, a canvas of possibility, and then turned her gaze toward her grandmother, whose figure glowed brightly in the dim light. So, what's tomorrow's adventure? Andrea asked, a sparkle returning to her eyes. Tomorrow, Mary mused, a smile playing on her lips as she conjured up a vision. How about we have an art day? We can paint the sun, the moon, and everything in between. We'll let our imaginations run wild. Yay! Andrea squealed, excitement bubbling forth anew. The prospect of painting their own world brightened her spirit, overshadowing all worries clinging to her heart. As they stepped inside, leaving the coolness of the evening behind, Mary felt a comforting resolve settle in her chest. She saw the beauty of a new path unfolding for them, inky shadows intermingling with bursts of light, the intertwined textures of joy and sorrow. Andrea's laughter reverberated through the house, a melodic affirmation of the bond they were forging together. It was then that Mary realized that though they may have lost pieces of their past, they were also weaving something new, a tapestry rich with love, understanding, and resilience. In the quiet of the night, they prepared to greet tomorrow not just as two weary souls trying to piece together a disjointed puzzle, but as a family learning to embrace each moment, however imperfect, with love radiant enough to guide them forward into what was yet to come.